From the News Channel 5 Network, this is MorningLine with Nick Barris.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on MorningLine. I am Nick Barris. It is Tuesday, and we have a good show on tap for you. This is something that's a show we try to do every year, except sometimes there's pauses if you have a pandemic. But we're back at it again, and we're talking about Tin Pan South. Okay, it makes sense. This is Music City, and it's a wonderful, wonderful event that's been going on, I think, since, is it 1970? How far back? When did it first start? It goes back into the 90s when it got going, I think.
This is the 30th anniversary.
This is the 30th anniversary. So, Tin Pan South, it's about songwriters. It's about the creative juices behind so many of those hit songs you know from a lot of the big stars. Some of them write their own music, but you know a lot of fantastic songs are written. And Tin Pan South is a wonderful event that runs the festival, I guess, through March 29th to April 2nd. And we're going to talk about that this morning with a team of songwriters to kind of talk about how it is and what they do and how they make a living doing this. And we can take phone calls, and we also have, you know, folks with the Songwriting Association to get into. I want to share with some of you, because I know there's a bunch of people out here in Music City that move here, including someone right down in our newsroom who's one of our editors, talented guy. They're here not because they want to edit at News Channel 5. They're here because they want to try to make it in the music business. And there's so many talented people out there, and the fact is, at least from my observation on the outside looking in, is that there are a ton of talented people that never get a break. And frankly, there's some crappy people that make it, okay? It's just the truth. What does it take to make it in the industry? We can get into some of that as well. And as I said, the number is 737-7587. But we have 4 guests with us this morning, which is fantastic. 2 of them are joining us by Zoom. Let me introduce you to them. I've got bios and everything, so because I've met them all kind of for the first time today. Jen Schott's with us. She's here in person. Good morning to you, Jen.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me.
It's good to have you on. You're a songwriter.
Yeah, I am.
There's a long list of things. Your songs have been recorded by artists Tim McGraw, Rascal Flatts, Eli Young Band. She would be a successful songwriter. Also with us is Jennifer Turnbull. Nice to have you on.
Nice to be here.
She is Senior Director of Operations for the National Songwriters Association International and the Festival Director for Tin Pan South Songwriters Festival.
Yeah.
You had to be here today.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm honored to be here
It's
today.
good to have you on. Also, 2 more songwriters joining us by Zoom, and both of them also very accomplished. Phil Barton there. Good morning to you, Phil. How are you?
Morning. I'm amazing, thank you.
Now, you see that accent?
Coming
Where
to
is
you
it
from Boston
It's
today.
from Australia. You're Australian,
Well,
right?
I sure am, from the land down under.
It's good to have you on. Written a number of songs for a lot of stars over the years. It's good to have him on. Steve Bogart as well. Good morning to you, Steve.
Good morning.
Steve,
nice to be
you've
here.
written 10 #1 country songs, including, among others, George Strait's Carried Away, right?
That's correct.
If you write a song like that, are you rich for life?
No.
Okay. But it can be
You're rich for a
lucrative.
minute.
It's okay, right? We're going to talk more about how songwriters make money in this business. But, I mean, a lot of songwriters go their entire career hoping to get a cut like that, right?
Right. It's
Okay.
true.
Among other
And,
things, we'll talk about how that worked out. But go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, you're rich for a minute, and you're spiritually rich forever.
Yes, I like that. It's a
Yes.
wonderful thing. It absolutely is. Well, thank you all for coming on this morning. This is great because I learn so much whenever we do these programs. My wife, who you know, is in Leadership Music, which is a great organization, and I should know more. So let's start off with Tin Pan South, just for the basics for some of our viewers out there, Jennifer. Just the name Tin Pan South, where it came from, and let them know what this is all about and why these songwriters are all involved.
Yeah, absolutely. So the name Tin Pan South is a nod to Tin Pan Alley in New York, which was sort of the home of the songwriting profession for years, decades ago. Now I feel like Nashville is the home of songwriting, and so, you know, we refer to this particular week as Tin Pan South as a nod to that. The festival is actually a fundraiser for the Nashville Songwriters Association International, which is the organization that I work for and that Jen and Steve are on the board of. And it is an organization that was founded 55 years ago now, I believe, that Our main mission is advocacy. So you were talking about
Advocacy for songwriters?
Absolutely. So you were talking about how songwriters get paid. We work on all kinds of things based on that. We passed the Music Modernization Act a few years ago that changes how we get paid on digital platforms. We work on things like piracy, things like that. And then we also do education in the craft and business of songwriting for aspiring songwriters. So we have members all over the world who join the organization to get evaluations of their songs, to have mentoring by professional songwriters, things like that that allow them to expand their craft and explore the idea of being a songwriter.
And we should say too, I mean, I think you're right about Music City being the heart and soul of that all now for the country. But it's not just country music for our viewers. Let's be real clear on this. There are songwriters here for all types of genres, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. Tin Pan South is all genre. You'll hear everything from country to bluegrass to contemporary Christian to pop to hip hop. There's a little bit for everybody.
Okay, which is wonderful. I think that there's so much to have. And as I mentioned, again, March 29th to April 2nd. We'll talk more at the end of the show about how people can go about getting tickets and getting involved. Let's talk to the songwriters too. And you jump in too. We've got. Are you a songwriter?
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not.
But you're a music lover.
I'm absolutely a music lover, and I'm in awe of the amazing people I get to work with every day.
Incredibly talented people. All right, so Jen, let's start with you. I mean, maybe just give us a little background about how you became the songwriter, what it took for you to get to where you are right now. I'm going to ask the same question for you two gentlemen as well. And you may have different approaches to how you came about it, but I think that's very interesting for people.
Yeah.
Like, kind of, what was it? I assume you always loved music.
I've always loved music. So I grew up in a very musical household.
Okay.
My father was a professor of woodwinds. My mom is a flutist. So music was just always a huge part of my life. But I grew up in a small town in Kansas. I had no idea that songwriting was a profession. I wrote songs. I just didn't know that there was a place for it.
Yeah.
As I grew up, as I got out of high school, my summer job was working at a country radio station in my hometown.
Awesome.
It made me fall in love with the genre. And as I went off to college, every summer I would come back and work at this station. And this Nashville thing kind of started tugging at me. I knew I loved to sing. And I thought, well, if I can get to Nashville, work in the business in some way, then maybe I could eventually sing for a living. But when I got here, fortunately, the first job I got was as a receptionist at a music publishing company. And the music publishers are the folks that staff the songwriters and support the songwriters. And that kind of changed my whole trajectory. I said, okay, I want to do this songwriting thing.
You want to do the songwriting. Now,
Yeah.
could you do both, maybe one way or the other? I mean, and many songwriters become, stars and performers later.
Absolutely.
But is it, songwriting, it's kind of like you're poets. You have to be a good writer.
It's the writing and living in Nashville as an aspiring songwriter, there's no better schooling than to go to a place like the Bluebird Cafe or now other venues.
Sure.
And to get to hear, that's what I would do as a young writer, is go and listen and get inspired and learn and just work on the craft.
Yeah,
and,
it's interesting too, though. Like you just mentioned, how you kind of started. You just get in, like the old classic Hollywood thing, where you get to a studio and you're in the mailroom.
That's right.
you
work
do
your
that,
way
but
up.
you're observing and you work. But is that kind of how it started for you then?
Absolutely. Yeah, I did that for about 3 years while I was, finding other young writers that had day jobs, and we would write at night.
Yeah.
And started knocking on doors at publishing companies, and it took about 3 years to be able to make that switch to completely being on the creative side of things.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Phil, how about you? Can you give us a little background for how you got into the biz?
My journey's a little different. I'm obviously from Australia, so it's a long way away. I picked up a guitar. Obviously, there's a band in Australia called In Excess that I loved. I watched them go all the way to #1 in America, and from that moment on, being a 13-year-old, all I dreamt about was writing a #1 song in America. I studied music. I ended up in children's music, which was very interesting, and I toured around Australia and all over the place. I had a song in Bob the Builder. I did all sort of fun stuff.
Wait. You did Bob the Builder? You wrote Bob the Builder.
I had songs. I had a couple songs in Bob the Builder TV show. I didn't write the theme song, unfortunately.
Bob the Builder.
But
I love that show, but go on. My son grew up with that. Go on. I'm sorry.
So I ended up in the wonderful world of children's music and did 87 records before I eventually fled to America and started writing songs in this town and just getting inspired by all the people and things like Tin Pan South were part of that journey where I'd get to watch these mega writers do their songs, and it was so amazing. And all I did was write song after song after song, and finally for me, my journey ended up getting a publishing deal, meeting some great people, and I finally got that hit song, you know. So that kind of led to this wonderful world of where now I get to write songs every day with amazing people like Steve and Jan and, you know, all the people you'll see in Tin Pan South, really.
That is awesome.
It's a beautiful life.
Yeah, it just shows, I mean, the diverse background. How about you, Steve? Can you share a little of your background?
Well, sure. It's a little different as all our backgrounds are. I never had a real job. I had a band when I was about 12, and the lead singer sucked, so I started singing. And then we were playing a TV show on a local station, not unlike Channel 5. And the producer of the show, it was a show called High Time. It was sort of like a Dick Clark dance thing. And the producer said, you know, you'd really help yourselves if you had some original songs and didn't just play covers. So I started writing songs when I was about 14 or 15. Then got a publishing deal with Atlantic Records. I moved to Memphis, took the band on the road. I moved to Memphis, got a publishing deal with Atlantic Records, and worked with Jerry Wexler and Tom Dowd in Miami at Criteria. And a song that I had written way back then, 11 years later, I was sitting at Criterion. I opened up a Billboard magazine, and I saw a song by Marty Robbins that was in the top 10 with my name underneath it.
Wow!
Unbeknownst to me. Wow. So I called the producer, and he said, "Yeah, man, I've been trying to get a hold of you. I didn't know you were in Miami." And I said, "Well, let me know what's going on." So it won a BMI award, and my lovely wife said, "You know, you call yourself a songwriter," because I'd had record deals and I'd done different commercials and jingles and that sort of thing in Miami, and we were doing okay. She said, "You call yourself a songwriter, but we don't live where songwriters live. Songwriters live in Los Angeles, New York, or Nashville. So let's move." So we just took 8 rooms of furniture, a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old, big wheel strapped on the back of a U-Haul, and headed for Nashville. And it's been pretty good to me.
Tell you what, that guy, like a lot of you're living the dream, because what I said, he started off by saying was, "I've never had a job." What's your life?
Never had a real job.
That's pretty cool.
My son used to go to school. My son used to go to school, and his little braggy thing, instead of "my dad can beat your dad," he'd say, "My dad doesn't have a boss."
Yeah, that's pretty good. Be your own boss. Listen, we're going to take a break, and that was great, guys. When we come back, we'll talk more, just maybe about how you come up with the idea and how you put, you know, the words to paper to get that song going, how to pitch it, and then, you know, also want to talk a little bit more. They're living the creative world, okay, but there's also a business aspect to it as well, and maybe how they cross over and deal with that as well. So we can take a call or two if you'd like, 737-7587, or sit back and listen. We'll continue our conversation right after this. Stay with us.
With a lawyer, get 3 times more money than people without one. Maybe that's why we're the law firm Middle Tennesseans trust after a car accident.
We wake up each and every day and watch in awe at how we've grown, all we've accomplished, and what our community can do. We are all part of a transformation, sparkling with energy and spirit. Not every day is smooth sailing, and there's always hard work to be done. But we have so much for which to be grateful. We celebrate life's moments, large and small. We've invited everyone to share what makes our home special, welcoming, beautiful. realize in the day-to-day stories of our city, it's not always easy to appreciate the big picture. These big pictures are brought to you by News Channel 5's Sky 5. Look for a fresh perspective each new day.
MorningLine on News Channel 5 Plus lets you sound
We
off.
are, I think, the only show like it on the air right now in town.
A show driven by hot takes and experts on hot topics.
We have guests who really know what they're talking about.
Host News Channel 5's Nick Barris is ready to listen.
Let's take some phone calls. Start things off with Joe. Joe, good morning.
Good morning, Nick.
And always in contact.
You can message me through Facebook.
Watch MorningLine with Nick Barris. Weekday mornings beginning at 8 on News Channel 5 Plus.
I've spent the last 20 years being a journalist and asking people to tell me their stories and be vulnerable with me. And just a couple of years ago, when my son was facing his second open heart surgery, I posted a Facebook video telling you what was going on with my family. And you responded in the most wonderful way with just an outpouring of support, and it meant the world to my family. Thank you for being one in a million.
Can your traffic app do this?
More than 3 miles of backup.
Sky 5 Sky Map draws the line on traffic jams.
We've got the left lane still blocked.
But it does more than pinpoint traffic problems.
Here's the police line from Sky 5 and Sky Map.
Sky Map gives you a bionic bird's eye view of breaking news.
Some windows were shot out.
And goes deeper than an aerial view ever has.
4 crashes at this spot involving pedestrians.
Nothing else comes close to Sky 5 Sky Map. Only on News Channel 5.
We are back on MorningLine. Thanks for joining us. We are talking Tin Pan South this morning with a great panel of guests. Of course, that's the wonderful songwriting festival that's hosted here in Music City, and it's coming up March 29th to the 2nd. It's a fundraiser for basically, what did you say?
The Nashville Songwriters Association.
That's right. And does the Songwriters Association, do they now manage and run the Bluebird Cafe?
We do, yeah.
I remember the owner, didn't they make an agreement or something like this a few years back?
We sure did, yeah. We've owned the Bluebird Cafe since 2008 now.
That's what I thought. Gosh, it was longer than I thought.
Yeah.
I remember doing that show that day when it was announced. I think Bart Herbison was telling me about that.
Absolutely.
And I thought, well, that's cool. And the Bluebird Cafe is going to be very much a part of it. There will be shows throughout.
Yeah, so we have shows at 9 venues throughout the week, 2 shows a night at each venue, a 6 o'clock show and a 9 o'clock show.
Okay.
So we turn the house, completely different shows at 6 and 9 at each venue. Bluebird Cafe is one of our venues. We're also at 3rd and Lindsley, the Listening Room Cafe, all listening type spaces though. No room is bigger than about 350 seats.
You know the TV show Words and Music and stuff like that? I mean, so part of this will not, you'll be there, for instance, and these other songwriters that are with us this morning will be there. You'll get to play and sing your own songs.
Yes.
Okay, and then there is, as I recall going to some of the events, interaction, maybe where you interact with the audience. You can ask you the question, like, I just love that song. Where did it come from? You can talk about that, right?
Yeah, I mean, these performances are pretty intimate, and we're telling our stories. It's like you would be almost sitting in a living room telling your friends or family about here's why we wrote this song, or here's how we wrote this song.
I think that's such a wonderful part of this event. I'm going to get to the 3 songwriters here in a moment, just about how they get inspired. But I thought maybe they talk about they're lucky enough to live in the creative world of it, but there's a business part of it, and it sure has changed over the last decade for sure.
Absolutely.
So I don't know how much, and they can touch this, the songwriters, but how does that work then? Now, they all say they live in the creative world, but they can't ignore the business side of it. Do they have managers to deal with that, or how would you instruct someone to go the route they're doing?
No, so most professional songwriters are signed to a publisher, and your publisher kind of acts as your business agent, for lack of a better term. They will help facilitate co-writes. They will pitch songs on your behalf. They will give you a budget to do demos of your songs so that you have something to pitch. And you sign with that publisher for a term, and they have an ownership in the songs that you write.
Okay. Okay. And so, but they can handle that, because I guess as a songwriter, like Phil, you don't want to get too bogged down in the business side of it because it could kill your creative buzz.
That's exactly right. I mean, we're very thankful for our publishers and organizations like NSAI, and Jennifer and Bart that work so hard for our rights and all the stuff we don't want to think about. I mean, obviously, we are involved, and it would be ridiculous not to be absorbing what's happening in the music business. So, but you're right. Our job is to write great songs, and it's hard to be inspired when you're overthinking the business aspect. So
yeah, for sure. All right, this one of the most fascinating parts of this is how songs come about. You know, it's interesting. Just the other day, I follow the Rolling Stones on Twitter or whatever. All right, and Steve, the other day there was something showing how Keith Richards wrote one of their classics, and it was like on a napkin or something like that. And you've heard the famous story about how he went to bed one night and left his recorder on, and he created, I think, the opening riff for Satisfaction or something along those lines. He didn't even know he recorded it because he was so stoned the night before. So, I mean, you come up with stuff in different ways. Have you ever passed out at night and woke up with the recorder and realized you recorded something you didn't know?
Well, you know, when I moved to town, I had a mentor named Rory Burke, and he said, listen, you can do, there are 2 schools here. You can do the 3 days up all night stoned in Muscle Shoals, or you can do the Disney World, work from 9 to 5, take the kids to Little League practice, and have a normal life. And I chose the Disney World route. So, no, I'm not the pass out type. I have all the respect in the world for the pass out type, but that ain't me.
Yeah, okay. So how do you maybe get started on one of your songs? You guys, one after the other. You go ahead.
Well, I do 2. I mean, most of the time my process is twofold. There's ideation, which is this thing, and I just, if I get an idea, or like Dallas Frazier said, a songwriter is 2 giant ears with nothing in between. I hear somebody say, trouble knows trouble, and I go, trouble knows trouble, and then I take it home and I write until it's hard. I write by myself as long as it's easy, and then when it gets hard, I just have it in my little stockpile on my computer of ideas and lyric pieces and melody pieces. And then when I'm in a co-write or write with an artist, I have kind of an arsenal of ideas and thoughts to bring to the table, and then I listen to other people. You respect your co-writers, so I listen to what they say and how they would approach the idea. So it's twofold.
Yeah, it's a little different. Phil, do you prefer to write alone, or do you like collaborating?
I mean, with my children's stuff, I used to do it all by myself. So to me now, writing alone feels like work. And the thing I love about writing songs is the hang with the people, and just the bouncing of ideas between each other is my favorite part of writing songs. And different people take you different places, and it's really quite special to co-write. I mean, I find it just an exciting part of the business, even though you do obviously do what Steve does and write little ideas by yourself, take into things.
Yeah, I imagine someone to bounce it off. So Jen, I mean, the inspiration can come from just about anywhere, I suppose.
Absolutely.
And meaning, as they both said, I mean, they may get a line that they hear somewhere. It's just something. It could be something in the drive-through window at McDonald's. And it just catches you. And so you may say it in and record it, you remember it, and then you get back and, I thought that was clever. What can I do with it?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, kind of similar to what Steve was saying. I have the voice memos. Always, if I'm driving in the car, have a thought, or I hear something on the radio, so like somebody say something, and I keep a list of titles. And sometimes I don't know what it's going to mean, if it's going to mean anything. But what I like to do before I go into a co-write is look who I'm working with that day, and come in with several of those ideas to offer up. We may or may not use them, but I like to come in prepared. And sometimes I think of the idea one way. I thought, oh, it should go this direction, but then the beauty of co-writing, as Phil was saying, is your co-writer might have a completely different angle on it and make it 10 times better, you know.
That you haven't thought.
Yeah.
And is there which comes first? I mean, I think about Elton John and Bernie Taupin or something like that. And one writes the words, one writes the music.
Yeah.
Do you sometimes come up first with a catchy tune, or might you have, I've got this great line, let's put some music to it? Or does it just, whichever comes first?
I think it varies from day to day. I say mostly, I feel like for me and a lot of Nashville, it's idea-based.
Okay.
But we do work with a lot of writers that are producers and producing tracks and working on tracks while we're creating. So some days you go in and one of the writers has a track already started, musical track, and that may inspire. We're like, well, that kind of feels like a driving song, and then we might go that route.
Okay, so it's just however it comes about. It can go, guys. I'd like to hear from you on that as well. We have to take a quick break. We'll do that again. We'll take a break, be back. More of our conversation on Tin Pan South, and we've got a phone call or two as well. So we'll see what folks want to ask right after this. Stay with us.
This is a Storm 5 weather update. For weather on the go, download the Storm Shield app.
I'm News Channel 5 weekday morning meteorologist Nikki D. Ray. Clouds are on the increase and rain and storms are on the way. They're going to be very slow to move across Middle Tennessee and southern Kentucky. So with the forward motion being on the lower side, it's going to take some time to get here, and we're going to have some heavy and steady rain once it does arrive. So as far as accumulations over today and tomorrow, we're looking 1 to 3 inches. So please be prepared for localized flooding. Wind also going to be pretty breezy as we head throughout the day, and that's going to usher in some really warm weather as afternoon highs will be topping out near 80 degrees. So here's a look over the next 7 days. We obviously will be dealing with some scattered showers and thunderstorms for today, continuing overnight and into tomorrow. As the system will exit, we'll start to see peaks of sunshine by Thursday, highs in the upper 50s, dry yet cloudy Friday with a high near 60.
Welcome to your crawl space. Stupid light. Years of neglect and excess moisture have led to mold, pests, and musty smells. You never know what you'll find down here.
Creeped out by your crawl space? USS can design a customized crawl space solution to remove groundwater, keeping your crawl space dry and healthy. Visit USSTN.com to schedule your free crawl space inspection.
Welcome to News Channel 5 Now streaming service.
We've got a lot going on tonight. Breaking news, Phil Williams has an in-depth investigation, and of course, Bree has your weekend forecast.
Eric, what would you like to see first?
Let's see. I'm really interested in Phil and Nick's stories, but let's start with Bree's forecast.
See, guys, Eric's ready for the weekend. Sunshine, blue skies, 70s both days.
Customize your news coverage with News Channel 5 Now. Search News Channel 5 Nashville everywhere you connect.
We are back on MorningLine talking about Tin Pan South 30th annual coming to Nashville for March 29th through April 2nd. It's going to be awesome. A chance to kind of, well, we're not playing music this morning, though I do wonder whether or not Phil wrote anything for the Wiggles.
No, I didn't, but I've done many shows with Dorothy the Dinosaur and all their friends, and they are the best guys.
Yeah, listen, I brought that up if you were just joining us. He's done children's music as well as more, and then that just led him to this point. I just think that's great. So when we went to the break, we were talking about which comes first, you know, the melody and the tune or the words. And, you know, we heard from Jen. What do you guys say? I mean, Steve, what comes first, or do you have a preferred way of doing it?
Well, generally, I have a lot of ideas already written down, and so if there's a musical thing that's going on that's inspiring, I'll try to find an idea that fits that. It can work either way. I was working with a couple of guys in Aldine's band, and they had this amazing track going, and the question in the room was, well, what do we write about? And the bass player said, I'm seeing red. I said, all right, I think I can make something out of that. And so we kind of turned it into a song with a lot of seeing reds, and it turned out to be a big hit. But it wasn't an idea that we had coming in. It was an idea that was inspired by the music and the licks. But most of the time, I'm pretty lyric driven.
Very interesting. How about you, Phil?
Well, Nick, yeah, it's like what Steve says. It's a lot of what happens in a room. You never know what you're going into most of the time, and it might be a groove or a guitar riff. Someone might just strum one chord, and it inspires a word. It's pretty amazing, and then you start flowing on a thing, and you never know. Like most of the time, I walk out of a room and I'm amazed. Like this little thing that, you know, wasn't even thought about is now a living kind of creature at the end of it. And it's like, I mean, there's days where you're just like, oh, this is just a part of my life. This song, like, I don't know how it never not existed, but anyway, it's such a crazy process. I love it.
I think it's
a lot of times, nowadays we're writing with artists, and so if it's an artist that's going to have to sing the song, 300 times a year, then we give great credence to trying to help the artist make that song the best it can possibly be, but give a lot of weight to what they're feeling and what they want to say, and because they're the ones that have to stand on stage and sing it.
Absolutely, makes sense. Hey, let's take a phone call. We got a call from James. James, good morning. Hi, James.
Good morning, folks. How are you?
Morning.
Yeah, I write from my soul and my heart. I've got a musical family, and my stepfather played country music for years. And my grandmother was a gospel singer, and she composed her own. So I learned from some really talented folks because they knew so many people that were into country music and gospel over the years. I write from my heart and soul, current world events, and if I get asked to write something for somebody, I kind of target their genre.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, thank you for that. I mean, yeah, writing from your heart and soul, something that touches you, I guess, because that's how you really feel. That's the easiest way to do it, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
I don't mean easy, I guess means that's the purest way.
They tell you to write what you know.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And every song is you think there are finite amount of emotions, right? But we all feel them in some way. And so it's to be able to reach inside and kind of go back to something that you felt and write something true. And as Steve was touching on, when we're creating with artists, you're trying to, we want to create something that rings true to them, that they can share, and that feels authentic.
Right.
It's all about authenticity.
And when you guys write and you finish a song, you were telling me during the commercial break, you just don't always know which song is going to be a hit. In fact, there may be one you think, this one's great. And this one that was kind of a throwaway that's on there as well is the one someone grabs, and it may be the one that becomes a hit.
Right.
Talk about just how quirky that is.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all have a sense some days when you're writing, you're like, this one feels special, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to get cut or get recorded soon. I mean, it could take years, or it may not happen at all. And then there are other ones you're like, oh, it's okay. It's an okay song, and it gets cut right away. So yeah, there is no rhyme or reason to that. I mean, every once in a while you go, oh, this is a special one, but yeah, you never know. And that's what keeps you going too, though. Every day that we sit down to create something has the potential to be, an award-winning song. I mean, every day you have to kind of go in and go, every day has that potential.
So Steve, did you know that Praying for Daylight for Rascal Flatts was going to be a hit?
We felt really good about it when we wrote it. I took it actually to Mark Bright for my friends I went to high school with are part of Blackhawk, Henry Paul, and we took it. They put it on hold for a year, and then I didn't know there wasn't such a thing as Rascal Flatts, and one day Mark called me and said, I got to play you something. I hope you're not going to be mad. So he plays me the cut, and he said, it's a band. It's a new band. They don't have a deal yet, but they will in a week. They don't even have a name yet. And he played me the record. I went nuts and just said, how can I give him something else? How can I write with him? What can I do? So we knew it was a really special song because it was so unusual. That's what we try to do is take the roller coaster just to the edge so it scares people a little bit, but then they're back and they're safe again.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Phil, how about A Woman Like You for Lee Brice?
It was a little different than that. It was honestly one of the longest writes I've ever had. I think we wrote it all day for about 12 hours, and I felt just exhausted at the end. But the crazy thing that happened was John Stone, who I wrote it with, one of my co-writers, he was going past a grill out that Lee Brice was having at his house, and he said to Lee that night, something like, I think I wrote a great song today. So he wasn't really pitching it at him. He just said, do you want to hear this song? You know, like, I think this is a really great song. And he played it to Lee, and I woke up that next morning and there was a little recording of Lee singing our song. And really, I mean, Lee took that into Curb Records that day and said, I think this is my first single off the next record. And it ended up being his first #1 song. And I mean, it made all of our dreams come true, really, because, you know, I mean, I think I'd met Johnny Bulford, who was the other co-writer at, you know, a songwriter round. It might have been a Tin Pan show at the Commodore. And, I thought he had a great voice, and I asked him to write, and it was the third or fourth song we wrote was Woman Like You. And you know, it ends up being on the radio. I was driving a moped scooter at the time, so I never really heard it on the radio. I just heard, I still think of it as a demo that, you know, we did, like, just the first recording, you know, and that's where the song was, and it's a beautiful journey.
See, I just love that. All right, so for you, Jen, I was looking, I mean, you've written so many. Mickey Guyton's Better Than You Left Me. How about that? I mean, is that kind of the same path there? How did it come about? Did you know it was going to be the...
You know, we knew it was something special, but, you know, the day we wrote that song, it was me and Jennifer Hansen and Mickey, and
Okay.
Jennifer and I had never met Mickey until that day, until that moment that she came in. And what I love about that, remembering about that day, is Mickey came in just an open book, and she was like, here's what's going on in my life. And for about 30 minutes, just kind of shared her heart and what was going on, and it was great material. And so Jennifer and I are looking through our song ideas, and I'd had the title Better Than You Left Me, and threw it out to them, and we ended up writing the song in about 90 minutes.
Yeah, I was going to ask too about time. Like, he was just talking about how that was, I mean, he said a lengthy write, like 12 hours.
Yeah.
Now, I'm wondering, in my mind, I was thinking some songs, if you're taking your time, could take weeks to write.
Yeah.
But he said 12 hours straight. I could see that'd be exhausting, but you wrote it in under 2 hours.
Yeah, and it just depends. I mean,
What's the fastest you've ever wrote a song?
Gosh, I mean, I'd say an hour to 90 minutes is
Wow,
probably
because it's
the
just the
fastest.
inspiration hit and it all just came down.
It just poured out, but not every day is that way. And
Sure.
certain ideas just dictate they're going to take longer, and certain co-writing combinations I've found too. I know that we're probably going to take a couple days to finish the song.
That's so interesting. And then getting the song in front of the artists or to connect. Were you going to say something?
I was just going to say, yeah, it differs the situation, how long it takes. I mean, me and Steve went out on the bus one time with Darius Rucker, and it just, I mean, the great thing about writing with, say, Steve, for me, is he's a great lyricist, and I can do my melodies, and I think we wrote 3 songs in 2.5 hours, and it was a magical little afternoon, you know. I mean, just doesn't happen like that every day.
Yeah, and you know, it just sounds like fun. Sitting on a bus with Darius Rucker writing a song. God damn, 3 songs. All right, we'll take a break on that. We'll come back. Our final segment with you guys. This hour is flying by right after this, so stay with us more in just a moment.
This is a Talk of the Town Extra.
I
I'm Meryl Rose. Many people suffer from chronic back or neck pain, but what's causing that pain? Here to tell us more is Dr. Kevin Mitchell from the Wellness Institute of Nashville. Welcome.
It's great to be here.
So what is spinal stenosis and how does it cause sciatica?
Spinal stenosis is a canal that's closing. It's like driving a car through a tunnel, and the tunnel gets narrow and the car can't get out the other side. The nerve feels like that because that spinal canal is closing, and sciatica will cause numbness down into the legs, tingling, and all types of pain for the patient.
What types of treatments do you offer for sciatica?
Well, I do non-surgical spinal decompression. It elongates that spinal disc, putting in blood and nutrition, and getting rid of the sciatica.
In fact, one of your patients is country star Colin Ray.
Yes.
Let's take a look.
I had developed a massive, massive pain in my lower back. It was obvious that something was wrong, you know, and I was really starting to get pretty discouraged about my future. But when I came to see Dr. Mitchell for the first time, I realized that not all chiropractors are created equal. And he says, this decompression will fix this. He tries to cure you, and he cured me. You don't have to live the rest of your life in pain.
So what makes your office different from other medical professionals?
I get my patients in that day, and I'll also go over the x-rays or the MRI in detail so that my patients know what is going on and how to repair it and alleviate the problems.
Do you have a special offer for the viewers today?
I do. For the first 25 callers, they can have an exam, consultation, and x-rays for only $19.
All right, we appreciate you being with us. Dr.
Great.
Kevin Mitchell from the Wellness Institute. If you'd like to find out more about the treatment for spinal stenosis, you can visit their website, painisbad.com, or contact them at the number you see on the screen.
We are back on Morning Line. It's our final segment with our guests talking about songwriting in Music City, Tin Pan South, the amazing songwriters festival that's coming to the city at the end of the month. We're going to tell you more details about how you can get tickets and the such with us. Great songwriters with us sharing their stories today. Jen Scott Schatz with us, Steve Bogart, and we also have Phil Barton both joining us right now on Zoom as well. And Jennifer Turnbull, who's the festival director for Tin Pan South. You know, you hear it in all kinds of industries. It's not always what you know, even though that talent counts as who you know. And I'm just wondering, for people watching, hoping to ever get to the level these songwriters are at, what recommendations do you make, and how important is it that you know someone so you can get a song that you've written that's really good to the people who need to see it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, networking is invaluable. And obviously that's a tough thing to say when we've all sat at home in our living rooms trying not to talk to people for the past 2 years.
Right.
But no, networking is invaluable. And actually, NSAI endeavors to provide those opportunities for aspiring songwriters where they can be in the room with a publisher and meet those people, meet other co-writers, you know, meet people who could make a difference in their career as they go along the way. You know, are we going to be able to create that spark moment where you go from nobody's ever heard of me to I'm the biggest star in the world? Probably not, but it's all about those little steps along the way.
Is that the route you really still have to go all the way, you know, to networking for sure, you're right. But I mean, 100%. Has it changed a bit? I mean, as a songwriter, can you three, if you write something you really like, and maybe at your level, you know, it's got a path to follow, but if you're new into it, what if you just start posting some of that stuff on, you know, like Taylor Swift did, and that was years ago, but got started with just putting it online, and maybe you start cultivating a group of folks that say, wow, this is a good songwriter, and it takes on a life of its own. Can that happen?
It can happen. It's, you know, those are rare instances. You know, they're the ones you hear about. You know, you don't hear about the ones that put things out there and nothing came of it.
And there are so many.
And there's so many of those. So it can happen, but, you know, more often they call it a 10-year town in Nashville. It's chipping away at it day after day, making those connections, writing a little bit of a better song, taking the constructive criticism, rewriting the song 14 times, and one day something just clicks.
Okay, but I'm guessing, I've asked Jen this, I'm guessing, Steve, and all of you have accomplished, you have to know songwriters who have come to Nashville or Music City and wanted to make it and never did. And left. There's far more of that.
Yes.
And so, I mean, as talented as all three of you are, you know you're all three damn lucky.
Luck is always a part of it. It's a part of anything in life, but you have to be prepared, and you have to have your all your guns loaded for when the opportunity arises. So it's both of that, both of those things. But yeah, there are a lot of talented people who perhaps don't have the social skills or the networking skills or the personality to fit in, that end up going home, and it's sad because there's a ton of talent.
Yeah, exactly. And Phil, I mean, maybe you can weigh in too. You always hear about the artists or the producers and such constantly being given, in the old days, a cassette tape or a CD later. And now, I don't know, what is a flash drive, or it's emailed to them, you know, and they must have, we were talking during one of the breaks about how when an artist is choosing songs for their next album or whatever, I mean, they may have 1,000 to choose from. And maybe out of that 1,000, there's 100 that are just really good, and they can only choose 12. It's like a crapshoot, right?
Yeah, it's crazy how many great songs there are out there. So you got to write and get the best song in the world. You know what I mean? So it does stand out. That's the thing. And going back to like what Steve was saying, I feel like if you work hard, you can create your own luck. Like, luck can happen by working hard and being there to make opportunities happen. And, you know, it's little things. It's like, when I first moved to town, I wanted to write with Jen Shotze because I saw her and I loved her songs. And I went and I saw a bunch of her shows, and every time I'd say hello and I'd say, that's a great song, Jan. I'd love to write one time, without saying that, you know. And I think about the 4th or 5th time we met, we ended up booking to write a song, and you know, that's
interesting.
Hopefully me and Jen will have a hit song down the track, you know, and that will be the start of how that journey happened, you know?
Yeah, but Jen, those first 4 times you kind of big-timed him, didn't you? Like, who's this guy? I wonder who is this guy? But no, I'm glad you shared that. Is that kind of how it works? You go and you see others, you get together, and... Absolutely.
I mean, I feel like young writers are always asking, how do I break in? What do I do? And one of the things I always recommend is, hey, go to writers' nights and go introduce yourself to, if you hear a song you like, go up to that writer, and if nothing else, say, hey, could I buy you a cup of coffee and just pick your brain about songwriting? And just get to know them. It's a business, like all businesses, it's a business of relationships.
Yeah,
It really is.
And we did talk